Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's joined us today for the seventh webinar in the COVID-19 Insights series, Navigating Uncharted Territory from ADARA. Today we welcome Chris Thompson, President and CEO at Brand USA, for a candid conversation with Ted Sullivan, Vice President, Destination Analytics at ADARA. As always, we'll start this webinar today with Carolyn Corda, Chief Marketing Officer at ADARA, who will share the latest data and insights from the ADARA Traveler Trend Tracker. Carolyn Corda is an industry leader in customer data and predictive intelligence. As the Chief Marketing Officer at ADARA, she is responsible for aligning the brand with the company's expanding mission and growth goals. Prior to ADARA, she was Managing Director at Accenture, where she led the applied intelligence practice for the travel sector. Before that role, Carolyn was a senior executive at Epsilon with responsibility for developing and launching new data solutions. With that, I'll now pass it on to Carolyn to kickstart our webinar for today.
Thank you so much, Niharika, and welcome all. On the next slide, you'll see that we'll cover three topics today. First, a few notes on our COVID Resource Center. Then we'll dive into some of our latest trends. We're delighted to have with us today as our special guest speaker, Chris Thompson of Brand USA, who will be interviewed by our own Ted Sullivan. First, a reminder, all the slides that you're seeing will be sent out after the webinar. Now, for those who aren't familiar with ADARA, you might wonder where the data I'm presenting today comes from. We have over 270 consumer brands that share their data with us, including some you likely recognize: United, Marriott, Singapore Airlines, Travelport, and many more. As a result, we have a lot of data. On the next slide, you see you'll typically see over 14 billion searches a year and almost 1 billion air and hotel bookings. We're able to get fairly granular on transaction behavior, as most of our 1 billion profiles have on average 30 data points per profile. We've made a lot of our trend data available on our website. It's organized by region, US, EMEA, and APAC. You'll see the URL here, and of course, you're welcome to reach out if you'd like custom analytics. Now let's turn to what's new in the data. Over the past 2 weeks, we've seen some small but sustained increases in booking volumes in the US and in EMEA. It's what I characterize as early signs of modest gains. Mind you, that's from a very, very low base. Arne Sorensen's remarks on Monday encapsulate this view when he said, "The glimmer of good news is negative trends appear to have bottomed in most regions in the world." While that's a hopeful sign, it leaves us with a lot of questions. Will leisure really bounce back before business, as expected? Will drive markets be more popular than fly markets? When will people actually be traveling? What's the time frame? And when they do begin traveling, where will they be going? What destinations? Today, I'll offer some insights that can help you answer those questions. Some of our findings challenge assumptions about how consumers will behave and offer some clues as to how this next stage of the early rebound will unfold. Let's first look at leisure travel. Up until May, we were seeing more activity in flight bookings than in hotel bookings. They were a little bit out of sync. On the left, you have air booking volume broken out by trip purpose. Hot pink is business, the turquoise and purple are leisure and non-family and family respectively. For air travel, leisure bookings have bounced between an index of 10 and 30 throughout April, while for hotels, that's the chart on the right, leisure bookings, again, the turquoise and the purple lines, were flat from late March through April. It stayed below an index of 10. Both air and leisure, both leisure air and leisure hotel bookings popped up starting May 1st and have gradually increased over the last 2 weeks. So leisure air and hotel bookings are both rising. Now let's look at the destinations. For this chart, we're looking at the destinations for both business travel and leisure travel for air and hotel bookings. There's something counterintuitive going on here. There's not much consistency among the destinations for leisure trips or for business trips. You'd expect a fair bit of overlap between the air and hotel destinations being booked for each type of trip purpose. Because think of what a typical traveler goes through. They decide to, let's say they live in New York, they decide to take a vacation in San Diego, they book the air tickets. A few days later, maybe a couple weeks later, they book a hotel. so that both the air and hotel booking have San Diego as a destination. That's one instance, but we expect to see that behavior in aggregate. That's not what we're seeing in the data. I'll walk through what we have, and then I'll offer a couple of explanations. If you look at the table on the left, you'll see that the top business destinations in the first column, let's see, I got a note that we've lost sound. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if they can hear me?
I can hear you, Carolyn.
Yeah, okay, thank you, all right. If you look at the left, you'll see the top business destinations. In the first column are the top air destinations. Second column shows the top hotel destinations for business. There's just one city that's consistent, Los Angeles, there at the top. Now let's look at the table on the right for leisure destinations. You'll see the top flight destinations again in the first column. And there's only one match with the hotel destinations in the second column. Again, it's Los Angeles, obviously a popular spot. Here's what's surprising. If you look at the top flight destinations for business and compare them for the top flight destinations for leisure, the first column on the table on the left, first column in the table on the right, 4 out of 5 are the same. You'll see them typed in blue: LA, Miami, Denver, and Chicago. Similarly, if you look at the hotel destinations across business and leisure, comparing column 2, you'll see that 3 out of 5 are the same: LA, Orlando, and Phoenix. Tampa is maybe, given that it's close to Orlando. So why aren't we seeing something that's more aligned with a customer journey, where they book a flight, a few days later book a hotel? A couple explanations. There's likely a timing difference. Back in March, when airlines relaxed their change policies, we saw a huge spike in air bookings 91 and more days out for Orlando. So people that booked their air for Orlando in March, taking advantage of low fares and flexibility, may now be booking the hotel right now for the future travel. So they got the air in March, they're booking the hotel in May for travel out further in August and September. Secondly, there's a lot of talk about the drive market. So it's likely there are some hotel bookings that align with that trend, with people choosing, for example, to book a hotel in Phoenix, but rather than book a flight to drive to Phoenix, let's say from LA, they're going to drive, they're not going to fly. As we enter this new phase, we're going to need to expect the unexpected. We're going to see a lot of our tried and true rules about how people plan travel, how they search, how they book. Those are going to change. This year is just one example. Let's dig a bit into flight bookings. Now, these are all US domestic. What you see here on the chart is that the line that is hot pink is for travel in the next 0 to 15 days. And it's really bounced up. After over 2 weeks at close to 0, now starting in May, it's up to 10, it's up 10 times. It's at an index of 118. If you look at the period from January through early March, you can see that the average index was about 400, bouncing between 300 up to 600. So even with business flights now at an index of 118, it's still down to only about 25% of what it was for the early part of the year. The destinations in the table on the right likely look familiar. They're the same from the previous slide. Not surprising, since the close-in bookings, those that are taking place within 0 to 15 days of the booking, dominate the booking volume since the 1st of May. Now let's take a look, a deeper dive at leisure air bookings for solo, travelers, and couples. Chart on the left shows a big boost in air bookings since May 1 for both close-in bookings, those within 15 days of the booking, the pink line. There's also a bump for advanced bookings, more than 91 days out. That's the amber line. What's particularly interesting is there's a big split in destinations. It's mostly urban destinations that are popular for trips close-in, trips in May, and it's beach and sun locations that are in the lead for late summer and beyond. If you look at the table, the left column shows trips in the next 0 to 15 days, basically the rest of May. And with the exception of Miami, these are all fairly urban spots: Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas. While the late summer spots, with the exception of Denver, feature sun and or sand. The split likely speaks to the motivation for travel. Family and friends have been apart for a couple of months now. So perhaps what people are doing is reconnecting for the first wave. And the second wave later in summer is more about typical holiday fun in the sun. We pointed out last week that seeing Honolulu, Las Vegas, and Orlando make the top 5 list is contrary to accepted wisdom, the places that are either long flights, like Honolulu, or destinations that tend to draw crowds, like Las Vegas, Orlando, and Miami, would rebound later, that there would be a less confidence around traveling to those sorts of spots. This table here suggests there's at least some segments, and fairly prevalent segments, that don't have those concerns about long flights and crowds. Let's continue to look at U.S. trends with an emphasis on international travel to countries outside of the U.S. The assumption is that this is the last type of travel to rebound. So it's a positive sign that we do see air bookings had a modest pop from essentially zero over the last couple of over the last couple of weeks. Notice that the predominant window is 91 plus days out. That's the amber line. Particularly interesting is that the destinations you see on the table on the right are a mix of countries that have been in the news recently due to infection rates, Mexico and Spain, along with destinations such as the UK and France that are considered relatively easy to navigate. Those also made the list. Tokyo is a bit curious. Olympics have been delayed until next summer, which is beyond the 330-day window when flights are made available for booking. So people are going to Tokyo before the Olympics. For business bookings to international destinations from the U.S., we see a surge of bookings in May across all booking horizons, from close in to 91 days and more out. Neighboring countries such as Mexico and Canada made the list, and UK, which is likely to be easier to navigate, likely more lift, also made the top 5 list. Very strong business markets, ones with high traffic such as China and India, are also there on the top 5 list. We have one chart for EMEA, which is showing gradual growth for advanced bookings. Now the index is still under 10, but it's risen off from what was essentially on the floor. Flight and hotel bookings have both floated up, particularly for the more advanced bookings, those 91 days and out. That's the amber line. Now these are all international trips within EMEA, and the destinations that made the top 5 list for air bookings include a mix of traditional sunny spots, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, along with traditional favorites such as France and the UK. Today, we're proud to introduce a new data set. ADARA has expanded its scope to include not just travel, but other consumer discretionary activity. The broader data set will allow us to help clients detect changes in demand earlier, shifting from lagging to leading indicators. Some of the types of data include restaurant bookings and tickets purchased for events such as concerts, sports, and shows. Coming soon is data on consumer-level social events, such as the invitations we all get from our friends and family for birthday parties, graduation celebrations, and open houses. The first chart shows the volume of restaurant reservations booked starting from January up until this week. People in cities that have shut down less aggressively are planning to dine out. You can see that in late April, there were increases for Dallas and Atlanta. We chose just a few to highlight here. Dallas and Atlanta, those are the pink and purple lines respectively, but New York City stayed flat. There were still some, but it was close to 0 on the chart. Moreover, for Dallas and Atlanta, there are people that are comfortable eating in a restaurant right now. You can see that 80% of the bookings for Dallas are for this week, and the rest are split pretty evenly between 2 weeks and 3 weeks and more out. For Atlanta, it's a bit more conservative, with about 70% for this week, 20% for 2 weeks out, and 10% for 3 weeks and beyond. For New York, given that the city is still shut down, all the reservations are 3 weeks more and out. For this last trend slide, we're looking at how people in the U.S. are booking tickets for events that are taking place at the end of the year, from mid-December in 2020 into early January 2021. You can see that there was a big jump this past week. Part of that likely reflects pent-up demand. Also, some schedules, such as the NFL games, were recently published. You can see on the right some of the top events for the year, and they cover a wide range of activities. So it looks like it's more than one segment that's really interested in planning their entertainment for the coming year. You see shows, concerts, and sporting events all there in the top listed events. Our intent in sharing these trends for dining and entertainment is that, particularly in these uncertain times, understanding consumers' willingness and appetite to book entertainment, to reserve a table at a restaurant, helps to flesh out the picture of how consumers expect to be spending their time and money in the coming months. With that, let me turn it over now to Ted Sullivan, ADARA's VP of Destination Analytics.